right, here we are, folks. It is time for the 2026 Stanley Cup Playoffs. And we have to do our bracket challenge, baby. Let's get into the predictions. Let's log into NHL Game Zone. And there we go. We can now get underway. Our predictions, our Stanley Cup favorites. So, obviously, I am one guy, and my predictions are going to be probably, hopefully, different from yours. I would assume that the people that watch these YouTube videos can come up with their own ideas and they don't just base everything off of what I say, because, I'm gonna be real, that's probably not the best idea. Let's go out there and talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs and predict every series. I'm not going to get too deep into the numbers. I want to go off a feeling. I want to talk a little bit about these teams. I want to dive into some of the matchups here. So, our very first battle of the playoffs. We will have the Colorado Avalanche against the LA Kings. Look, let's face it. The Avs got Nathan MacKinnon. He's at 127 points. Adrian Kempe is at 73. The Avs are a better team. And the LA Kings, let's face it, they got into the playoffs because of loser points. They had 22 regulation wins this season. That was tied for second worst in the league. Only Vancouver, at 32nd overall with 58 points, had fewer regulation wins than the LA Kings this season. Yes, it's going to take a miracle out of Darcy Kemper and everybody else for LA to win this one, but I'm going to say Colorado, for the powerhouse that they have been, they are going to win this first round series. And heck, I'm going to say they do it probably in 5 games. I think they make easy work out of the LA Kings. Now, second round matchup, or I guess second first round matchup, we've got 2 even combatants between the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. The Stars bested out Minnesota in most of these categories. However, when you talk about the points, this is where it becomes a little divisive. You can say, hey, Jason Robertson was a top point scorer, but so was Kirill Kaprizov in limited minutes. You have Matt Boldy and Quinn Hughes. You have Mikko Rantanen and Miro Heiskanen. But what I really think this is going to boil down to is the depth that Dallas has. I'm sorry, Joel Eriksson, but I'd rather take Wyatt Johnston over you. And furthermore to that point, I would say that as a Vancouver Canucks fan, it feels weird to even acknowledge the idea of Quinn Hughes winning and doing what it is that he wants to do with Minnesota. So for the sake of it, let's just say Dallas. I'm going to say Dallas in 6. Now, our Pacific matchups, Vegas and Utah. Jack Eichel with 90 points, Clayton Keller with 86. Utah and Vegas were pretty close in terms of most of these numbers. Goals per game, goals against per game, they were dead set even. Vegas has slightly better special teams, though. I think ultimately what it boils down to is this is a Utah Mammoth club, essentially a reskinned Arizona Coyotes team, that is going to want to prove themselves. Vegas, they've gone to the top of the mountain before. They have a lot of talent. And it's really going to depend on Carter Hart. He's the new guy who has finally taken over that number 1 starting role. And with John Tortorella at the helm, you could definitely say that this team has a big boost of energy right now. I think it's an unfortunate time for Utah to play off against Vegas. I think if they had kept Bruce Cassidy, they'd have a much better chance of losing. But I'm going to go Vegas here, and I'm going to say they probably do it in 6. Now, Edmonton and Anaheim. This is going to be tight. Connor McDavid obviously led the league in points this year, but the Anaheim Ducks, they started things off super hot this season, fizzled out a little bit in the middle, and ended up finishing 3rd in the Pacific Division. Edmonton is the better statistical team in most of these categories, but Anaheim has a really good amount of depth and some strong work ethic too that is going to take them far in this series. I'm going to say it goes 7, and I'm going to say it's going to go Edmonton here. Okay, how many games will it take to win? Let's say 5, let's say 6, let's say 6, and then let's say 7. So let's lock that in right here. If that's not actually what I said earlier in the video, then hey, I apologize. Now, I'm just going to say this right here. I had Montreal beating Tampa Bay in 7, and you can go check out the pre-series video that we made, breaking everything down, if you want to get my take on that. Buffalo, Boston is over here as well. Man, the Buffalo Sabres are an absolute wagon. But the Boston Bruins, with David Pastrnak and Jeremy Swayman at the helm, they have definitely bolstered themselves up over the past few weeks. Buffalo was the better regular season team. However, Boston does have better power play numbers. For what it's worth, I do think that all it takes for a team to make it far in the playoffs is a hot goalie, and both Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Alex Lyon had been shaky a little bit over the past few weeks. Let's go with Jeremy Swayman. I'm going to say it's going to be 7, and look, if Buffalo ends up proving me wrong, I'm going to be super happy about that because the Sabres have such a fun story from this season. But for what it's worth right now, with momentum heading into the playoffs, I'm going to say the Boston Bruins take this one, and they're going to do it in 7 games. Let's move on to our final 2 first-round matchups, Carolina and Ottawa. The Canes, who have just been waiting for their opponent to show themselves this season. And the Senators, a team that was battling for one of those last wildcard spots with teams like Detroit, Columbus, the Islanders. Ottawa ultimately comes away with the victory, and they squeak into the playoffs with 99 points. They had fewer goals per game and more goals against per game than the Carolina Hurricanes. They also had worse special teams. Everything in my being says that the Carolina Hurricanes are the better statistical team, and thus they should be the winners. But I'm honestly going to go for an upset. I'm going to say Ottawa, and I'm going to say in 6. I think this is a team that has so much heart and determination, and as long as Linus Ullmark shows off that he can still be that Vezina caliber guy, this is a team that should go far. So what do we have right here? Boston in 7, Montreal in 7. I'm going to say Ottawa. Did we say 6 or did we say 7? You know what? I'm going to go 6. And then Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. Rick Tocchet's team, hey, they ended up making it into the playoffs here with 98 points on the dot, tied with Pittsburgh. But you know what? We got to go out there and give our props, man. Rick Tocchet, y'all were fine, but I'm going to go Sid the Kid Crosby. And I'm going to say that he takes his team into a second round that nobody ever thought the Penguins would have been close to reaching this season. I'm going to say it's going to take 6 games. Let's go 6, 6, 7, and 7. This is our first round of the playoffs. This is not that bad, right? I mean, sure, on the left side of the graph on the Western Conference, I just took the 4 teams that were higher placed in points. But we got Montreal, Ottawa winning in the second round. Let's go out there and take a look at this quarterfinal matchup. We have the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars, the 2 powerhouses over here. I'm sorry, but I gotta give it to Colorado once again. If they can figure out that power play, they are gonna be an unstoppable team. And even though Dallas, they always put together a resume that sees them as one of the best contenders in the league, I just don't know if they have what it takes to stop the big bad Avs in a playoff series, man. I'm going to say it goes 7. I'm going to say Colorado comes out on top. Meanwhile, Vegas versus Edmonton. Eichel versus McDavid. The John Tortorella sweepstakes were won by Vegas earlier in this season, and we did see them get a coach bump. But I do think that that coach bump is going to fade away inevitably, and it's going to be very difficult for Carter Hart to maintain McDavid and Draisaitl. These guys are coming in for a vengeance. They want to go out there and take advantage of a Florida-less Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to go Edmonton in 6. They're going to be facing off against Colorado in the conference finals. Meanwhile, Boston versus Montreal. The Canadiens, a team that nobody thought would be this good this quickly, with a 100-point scorer, a 50-goal scorer, and a top defenseman who is one of the best in the league at producing points. I think the Montreal Canadiens, as long as they can get the goaltending, they will be able to out-battle Jeremy Swayman and Boston. I think it's going to be close, but I do think the Montreal Canadiens are going to find a way to choke. I'm sorry, I gotta go Boston here. Look, the Montreal Canadiens are my second favorite team. Do I think that they're a third-round team this season? I don't know if you can get there with Fowler and Dobesh. I do know, however, Jeremy Swayman has been a rock the past few months, and he has been so hot heading into this playoff run that I do think that goaltending is going to be a really big pressing issue for Montreal in round 2. I'm going to say it takes 7, and it's going to be a really hard-fought 7, but Montreal, your team is not there yet, as much as I love the Canadiens at the moment. Same thing could be said about the Ottawa Senators. I'm going to go Pittsburgh in 6 over here. Yeah, Sidney Crosby and the veteran leadership finally getting one over the Canucks after losing out in the gold medal game at the Olympics. I know Crosby didn't play, but still. Sid the Kid with Evgeny Malkin, with Chris Letang, with Erik Karlsson. Imagine that. Erik Karlsson playing off against the Ottawa Senators in the second round of the playoffs, and I'm saying that Pittsburgh takes the dub here. Nobody thought this was possible, but I'm going to say it's going to happen. And finally, we've got Colorado versus Edmonton. Remember the last time these two teams met in the conference finals and the Avalanche absolutely embarrassed McDavid? That's what started this run of dominance for Edmonton in the postseason. Does that continue here? I'm going to say it does. I'm going to say Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they get things going against Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood. I understand Colorado has been the powerhouse that they have been. But if Connor Ingram can just have one series-stealing performance, it's gonna come in this third round. Nathan McKinnon, sorry buddy, you're gonna get eliminated by Connor Mick. And then you have yourselves the East, Boston versus Pittsburgh. Who is going to come out on top over here? You know what? It would be fun to say Pittsburgh for McDavid versus Crosby, but I'm going to go Jeremy Swayman, man. I do think that this will go down in this way. Select a champion, Boston versus Edmonton. You know what? The Edmonton Oilers got defeated twice in a row by Florida. They've played a lot of hockey. They're going to put it all on the line. They're going to do what it takes to defeat a Boston team that has come in swinging. And let's go Edmonton winning the Stanley Cup. How many goals are going to be scored in the Stanley Cup Final Series? Let's say Edmonton wins it in 7. Let's say there are maybe 6-7 goals per game, with maybe a lower scoring game tossed in there. Let's do 6x6, 36 minus a few. Let's say 31 total goals scored in the Stanley Cup Finals. Maybe a good chunk of them by Draisaitl and David Pastrnak. This is my Stanley Cup playoff predictions bracket for the 2026 playoffs. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Colorado over LA, Dallas over Minnie, Vegas over Utah, Edmonton over Anaheim, Boston over Buffalo, Montreal over Tampa, Ottawa versus Carolina, and the Penguins over the Flyers, Colorado defeating Dallas, Edmonton beating Vegas, Boston beating Montreal, Pittsburgh beating Ottawa, and then Edmonton and Boston in the finals with the Oilers on top. 31 goals in total. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.